afternoon, Bay Nation. Welcome to another episode of Fantasy Bay. I'm your host, Mike Williams, and today we're going to be going over the Washington football team versus the Denver Broncos. And we're going to start off with the home team, the Broncos. Starting at the top, Teddy Bridgewater. I actually think that Teddy Bridgewater is a fringe play this week. If you're desperate for a quarterback and nobody else out there, I bet Teddy Bridgewater is. Fire him up if you need him. Moving on to the wide receiver position. Courtland Sutton had a rough week last week, but the 2 weeks prior to that, he was top 12. I think you fire up Courtland Sutton. He's been really good this year. I definitely think that he'll be solid in this matchup. Washington definitely doesn't scare me. Jerry Jeudy is back from IR. I think that he should be a solid play this week. I am a little nervous playing players that are coming off of an injury. So if you don't have to play him, you may not want to, but I do definitely think he has a solid matchup so you can play him. I think he'd be a flex play with upside. And then the last wide receiver, Tim Patrick. With Jerry Jeudy back, I definitely think that Tim Patrick's going to take a hit in production. So I think it's going to be those top two guys, and Tim Patrick's going to kind of get whatever's left over. But he could still have a solid game. Moving on to the running back position. So far this year, Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams have been splitting the workload pretty much down the middle. I think that they're both flex plays this week. Javonte Williams is a little bit ahead of the pack. He's younger, he's less dinged up, but I really see them splitting it down the middle. Moving on to the tight end position. Tight end position is pretty thin, so I think you're starting Noah Fant if you have him. I doubt you have multiple tight ends that are good. Moving on to the defense. I think you can play the defense in this matchup. Washington's been playing pretty bad, and most of their key players are dinged up. Ryan Fitzpatrick's still out. Terry McLaurin's banged up. Antonio Gibson's dealing with some injury as well, so I definitely think you can play that defense. And with that goes the kicker, you can play them as well. Moving on to the Washington football team. To the quarterback position, you're not starting Taylor Heineke, get that out of here. On to the wide receiver position. Like I said earlier, Terry McLaurin is dealing with an injury. I do think that he's going to play, but I do think his upside's a little limited. So though I'm going to play him, he doesn't have the top 10 upside I'm thinking. I think he's going to be more of a wide receiver too. And he's the only wide receiver you'd be starting from this team. Moving on to the running back position. Antonio Gibson's also dealing with an injury. He has a shin injury and he's going to play through it, but he's a little banged up. So I have him more as a low-end running back too with upside. He can always bust a long play, but with a shin injury, I'm not super confident in it. That being said, I do think that J.D. McKissic will be a fine start. I have him more as a flex play. So I still prefer Antonio Gibson, but J.D. McKissic could get some work. Moving on to the tight end position. Ricky Seals-Jones seems to be that guy, so I think you can fire him up. And no to the defense, no to the kicker. Now it's time for Pigskin Pick'em. The Broncos are 2.5-point favorites in this matchup. Give me the Broncos. I think they take care of business at home. Washington's banged up. And I just think the Broncos are a better team. So that's going to do it for this matchup. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell down below. If you have any questions, hit me up. Good luck in your matchups this week. Happy Halloween and stay safe, everybody. Peace. Good afternoon, Bay Nation. Welcome to another episode of Fantasy Bay. I'm your host, Mike Williams, and today we're going to be going over the Patriots versus the Chargers. Let's start off with the home team, the Chargers. You play Justin Herbert every week. He's a great quarterback, and I definitely think he's a staple in your lineup. Moving on to the wide receiver position, so are these two. Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. No, not me, though I do look like I could be in the NFL. Just kidding. Mike Williams has been playing out of his mind this year, and I definitely think you play him every week. Same thing with Keenan Allen. He's incredible. You play him every week. Moving on to the running back position, Austin Eckler is a little dinged up this week, so check out his availability. Make sure that he's going to be healthy. If he plays, you play him. If not, you obviously don't. If he doesn't play, Justin Jackson should see some more work. Moving on to the tight end position, I think you start up Jared Cook. I think he's a solid tight end, and this is a good offense, so play him if you need him. Moving on, I think you can play this defense if you need them. I don't have them as a top 5 defense or anything, but I think they're serviceable. I'm playing them in one of my leagues, but I'm pretty desperate to be honest with you. Moving on to the New England Patriots. You're sitting Mac Jones this week. Yes, I know he had a fantastic game last week, but that was the Jets. Everybody plays well against the Jets. This week he's going against the Chargers, who are incredible against the quarterback and the wide receiver. We'll get to that in a minute. Moving on to the wide receiver position, the Chargers are very good against the wide receiver as well. I prefer not to start any of them if I didn't have to. Moving on to the running back position, Damian Harris is a great play this week. The Chargers lock up quarterbacks and receivers, but they allow you to run on the ground. That is Damian Harris's specialty. You fire him up this week. I think you're going to be pretty satisfied with the results. Moving on to the tight end, if I had to pick out of Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith, give me Hunter Henry. He seems to be more involved, and I think he has a shot to get a touchdown. Moving on to the defense, no. Kicker, yes. They use their kicker. So that's going to do it for the fantasy outlook of this matchup. Now it's time for Pigskin Pick'em. The Chargers are 5.5-point favorites in this matchup at home, but give me the Patriots. I do think the Patriots can keep this one close to the 5.5. I think they lose by about a field goal. So that's going to do it for this matchup. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell down below. If you have any questions, hit me up. Good luck in your matchup. Have fun on Halloween, but stay safe, everybody. Peace. Good afternoon, Bay Nation. Welcome to another episode of Fantasy Bay. I'm your host, Mike Williams, and today we're going to be going over the Dallas Cowboys versus the Minnesota Vikings. And let's start off with the home team, the Minnesota Vikings. Kirk Cousins is a solid play in this matchup. The Dallas Cowboys don't scare me, and if Dak Prescott does play, there should be a back and forth affair, and that means that Kirk Cousins is going to be slinging that rock. If Dak Prescott doesn't play, I still think you can start Kirk Cousins, but I think that his upside's a little limited because they won't need to throw the ball as much. Moving on to the wide receiver position, you fire up Jerry Jeudy and Adam Thielen. Jerry Jeudy as a top 10 wide receiver and Adam Thielen as a wide receiver too. I think they're both solid starts in this matchup. Moving on to the running back position, Dalvin Cook is an absolute beast. You fire him up every week he's healthy. You know how sometimes he has injuries and it's a little bad, but when he's healthy, you play him. Moving on to the tight end position, Tyler Conklin is a tight end that you can play if you're desperate. He is fairly involved, and that's really what you're looking for from a tight end. Hopefully he falls into the end zone. But if this isn't a high back and forth kind of game, there's a chance he doesn't. So start him with caution. Moving on to the defense, I prefer not to start them, especially if Dak Prescott's in. If Dak Prescott's out, they're a little more interesting, but there's probably better choices out there in the wire. And we can probably fire up their kicker. Moving on to the Dallas Cowboys. How about them Cowboys? Dak Prescott's currently dealing with an injury, and there's a chance that he doesn't play. I believe the injury got a little bit worse this morning, so he's going to test it. The problem is, this is an 8:30 game, and we may not have all the information by the time you have to set your lineup, so keep that in mind with all of your starters, especially Dak Prescott, who may not play in this game. I actually had this dilemma in a league. I picked up Kirk Cousins just in case Dak doesn't go, so I'd recommend you do the same. If Dak plays, you obviously play him. If he doesn't, obviously you can't. Moving on to the wide receiver position, if Dak doesn't play, I definitely think it downgrades the receivers. Not that you'll be benching them, but instead of CeeDee Lamb being a low-end wide receiver 1 and Amari Cooper being a high-end wide receiver 2, they both downgrade. So they're both pretty much wide receiver 2s, assuming Dak doesn't play. Moving on to the running back position, you're going to start Zeke no matter what, whether Dak's in or out. Doesn't really matter. You're firing up Ezekiel Elliott. Moving on to the tight end position, Dalton Schultz does take a hit if Dak Prescott's out. If Dak Prescott's in, you fire him up. If Dak Prescott's out, I don't feel as confident that he'll be involved. Moving on to the defense, no kicker, sure. They could be just good enough to get down the field and fall flat on their faces. That's going to do it for the fantasy outlook of this matchup. Now it's time for Pigskin Pick'em. The Dallas Cowboys are 2.5-point favorites in this matchup. I'm going to have to go with the Vikings. With Dak Prescott health up in the air, at this point, I think the safer pick is the Minnesota Vikings. You gave me 2.5 points, and they're healthy. I think that they're the pick. So that's going to do it for this matchup. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell down below. If you have any questions, hit me up. Good luck in your matchup this week, and happy Halloween, everybody. Stay safe out there. Peace. Good afternoon, Bay Nation. Welcome to another episode of Fantasy Bay. I'm your host, Mike Williams, and today we're going to be going over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the New Orleans Saints. Let's start off with the home team, the Saints. Now, I'm going to make this one quick. I think you can start Jameis Winston. I don't have him in my top 12, but if you need a quarterback, I think they're going to have to throw the ball against the Bucs. So Jameis should be pretty solid. He'll have to air it out. That being said, moving on to the wide receiver position, I'm really not excited about any of these guys. Until Michael Thomas gets back, I don't think anybody's going to be a real standout. If I had to pick somebody, it'd be Marquez Callaway, but I'm honestly not trying to start him if I didn't have to. Moving on to the running back position, Alvin Kamara is an absolute beast. You fire him up every week, no questions asked. Mark Ingram just got traded to this team, so I think that he could be worth a speculative ad, but he's definitely not worth a start against the Bucs defense. Yikes. Moving on to the tight end position, no. Defense, no. Kicker, no. On to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Those championship Buccaneers. How about them Bucs? Starting off at the top with Tom Brady. You fire up Tom Brady every single week. He's been the best quarterback this year, like I predicted. Just trying to tell you, Tom Brady's going to have an MVP type year. Mark my words. Moving on to the wide receiver position, unfortunately Antonio Brown is out. That's going to elevate Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. I prefer Chris Godwin in this matchup. Mike Evans is going to be going against Marshawn Lattimore, which is one of the best shadow corners in the league. And Michael Thomas has had a couple rough matchups with him, so I think that Chris Godwin's going to be elevated in this matchup. He's going to be a wide receiver 1, so fire him up. Not that you can't play Mike Evans, but it's a little tougher of a matchup, so I'd go Chris Godwin, especially in DFS. Moving on to the running back position, Leonard Fournette has taken the mantle as the top dog at the running back position in Tampa. Ronald Jones is nowhere to be found. So Leonard Fournette's gonna be that guy, fire him up. He's been the 3rd best running back in the last 3 weeks. That's impressive. And he's getting involved in the passing game. This guy runs like a beast, trucking through people. Moving on to the tight end position, check to see if Rob Gronkowski is gonna be playing in this matchup. I think that there's a chance that he plays, but it makes me a little nervous his first game back. I think you can play him, but I'd be cautious. That rib injury was pretty serious, and I'd like to see it before I started him. But some of you don't have that choice, so fire him up. I think you fire up the Bucs defense as well, and the kicker. So that's going to do it for the fantasy breakdown of this episode. Now it's on to Pigskin Pick'em. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are 4.5-point favorites, and I'm going with those Bucs. Jameis Winston going against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers does not scare me. I think that defensively we're going to have a solid game, and offensively we're going to do what we do. So that's going to do it for this matchup. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell down below. If you have any questions, hit me up. Good luck in your matchups this week. Happy Halloween, and stay safe, everybody. Peace. Good afternoon, Bay Nation. Welcome to another episode of Fantasy Bay. I'm your host, Mike Williams, and today we're going to be going over the Seattle Seahawks versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. Let's start off with the home team, the Seattle Seahawks. Unfortunately, Russell Wilson's not back yet, and we're not starting Geno Smith, so moving on from the quarterback position, on to the wide receivers. You start DK Metcalf every single week. He's big, he's strong, he's fast, he's the man. You fire him up. Unfortunately, Tyler Lockett is not doing so well without Russell Wilson. He's more of a precise route runner, and he's fast as hell. But unfortunately, Geno Smith's no Russell Wilson, so I have him as a flex play at best. Moving on to the running back position, Alex Collins is still taking over the mantle while Chris Carson's out. I think you fire him up as a flex play with upside. Moving on to the tight end, no. Defense, no. Kicker, no. Up next, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars. Taylor Lawrence has been playing pretty solid. He's getting some work on the ground as well. He's running the ball. I think if you're desperate, you can fire him up. Moving on to the wide receiver position, Marvin Jones Jr. and Laviska Shenault are pretty much flex plays at this point. If I had to pick one, it's Marvin Jones Jr., but I'm not really excited about either one. Moving on to the running back position, James Robinson has run away with this job, pun intended. Especially with the rookie Travis Etienne out of the picture, he's been taking advantage of his opportunity, and you like to see that. So fire him up every week. Moving on to the tight end, no. Defense, no. Kicker, no. So that's going to do it for the fantasy outlook of this matchup. Now it's time for Pigskin Pick'em. The Seahawks are 3.5-point favorites in this matchup, and I'm actually going to go with the Seahawks. Yes, I know they don't have Russell Wilson, but they're the Jaguars, and I'm really not confident in them either. So I think the Seahawks should have a solid chance at winning this game. I'm really not super confident, but I do think they can win, so I'm going with the Seahawks. So that's going to do it for this matchup. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell down below. If you have any questions, hit me up. Good luck in your matchup. Have fun this Halloween and stay safe, everybody. Peace. Good afternoon, Bay Nation. Welcome to another episode of Fantasy Bay. I'm your host, Mike Williams, and today we're going to be going over the Kansas City Chiefs versus the New York Giants. And we're going to start off with the home team, the Kansas City Chiefs. This is pretty simple. You start Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, Darrell Williams, all the main players in this matchup. None of the backup. No backup running backs, no backup wide receivers. You start the stars. Start your studs. They're all beasts. I know they haven't been winning as often as you're used to, but for fantasy, they're all still very valuable. Until Clyde Edwards-Helaire comes back, I think Darrell Williams will have this job. And even when he does come back, there's a chance that they split it because Darrell Williams has been playing so well. I also think that if you're desperate, you can play the Chiefs defense. There's a lot of better defenses out there, but I don't believe in the Giants, so I don't think they're going to score a bunch of points. I have them outside my top 15, but desperate times calls for desperate measures. And you're definitely playing the kicker. He's an absolute beast. Moving on to the Giants. Daniel Jones, I think you can play in this matchup. He's going to have to run the ball, and they're going to be down. So he's going to have to sling it and run the ball. I think that you can fire him up as a desperation quarterback play. Moving on to the wide receiver position, check your injury reports, because there's a chance that Kenny Golladay, Kadarius Toney, and Darius Slayton are all out. So you need to make sure that these players are in, obviously, on Sunday prior to setting your lineup. But there's a chance that Sterling Shepard's going to be in there. So if he's there, I think you can fire him up, especially if he's the only man in town. Moving on to the running back position, Saquon Barkley's still out. Fire up your Devontae Bookers. He's been pretty solid in the absence of Saquon Barkley. And the Chiefs have been kind of meh at guarding the running back position. So I think you can fire him up as a running back too. Moving on to the tight end position, if all those wide receivers are out, they're still going to have to throw the ball. So Evan Ingram, I guess. I'm really not excited about Evan Ingram, but he's a talented tight end. So I think that you should be able to play him. I'm just not excited about it. Moving on to the defense, no. Kicker, no. That's going to do it for the fantasy outlook of this matchup. Now it's time for Pigskin Pick'em. The Chiefs are 9.5-point favorites in this matchup. Give me the Chiefs. At home, with all those losses on their record, they are out for vengeance. I'm sure they are upset. They make it to the Super Bowl, now they're 3-4. Yikes. Look for this to be a get-right game. I definitely think that they're going to show out and beat the Giants by 10. They better. If they don't beat them by 10, I'd be really surprised and kind of disappointed. Be better, Chiefs. Be better. Stop turning over the ball so much. Don't get me started. That's going to do it for this matchup. If you have any questions, hit me up. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell down below. Good luck in your matchup this weekend, everybody. And happy Halloween! Stay safe out there. Peace.